Somebody asked, when does it start? It starts right now. It's 1 o'clock. The notice you see should say on it, live stream at such and such on this particular channel. So it should say on Lehto's Law or Steve Lehto and a live stream at 1 o'clock. So there you go. But I got the setup done kind of late for that. I apologize. Canadian Robot Lady will be joining us a little later on if all things work out. And in the room right now, we got Sometimes I Listen to Myself. Padre, aka Padre. Scott Summers in the house as Arts 4014. Hi, y'all from Icy Hope, Arkansas. Randall Spencer. Yeah, there's a lot of cold going around this country. A lot of cold. We've had quite a few days below zero here in Michigan, and we get some occasionally, but not. I don't remember a cold stretch like this for quite some time. So Chief FC says, Hal, I made it before it started. There you go. Padre, it's sunny in 35F in South Georgia. My good friend JP sent me a photograph of all the snow on his deck. I mean, I got snow on my deck too, but some parts of the country that's a novelty. Jerry Dodge in Kalamazoo went from -3 this morning to 26 right now. I've got 21 right now, and I see snow melting in places where the sunshine's hitting it. So it's a nice change for once. DePaul, 19F, mostly cloudy in Staten Island. Hola, Mexican Specs is Dan Boyd. So Mexican Spec must be in the house. Good morning, Steve. There you are. I see you there. Good to see you, my friend. Aviva Rabinowitz, good evening from Haifa, Israel. Thank you for checking in. I love it when the internationals check in. People from other parts of the world, not Lehto-mobiles. Vampire Bear, it's 15 here. Jennifer Guy, or is that GU4YV, you're making me cold by not having a jacket on. I'm wearing 2 sweatshirts and a jacket, and my heat is working. I mentioned last week that I have a thermometer on my desk. I misplaced it last week, but I show 79 degrees where I'm sitting and 21 degree humidity. So it's fine. Peter B, good morning, Steve. I was watching your video. I'm being sued. Welcome to Crazy Town. Was it about 5 years ago now? Maybe more. So, Padre, what's the deal with the killdozer? Viewer sent it in. Said, hey, here's a killdozer. Put it on the set. Tags B81, good morning from Boston. We're used to this weather around here. Chuck Whitehead, lost my dad since last time on Thursday morning. Sorry to hear that, my friend. I lost my mother about 3-4 years ago, and a brother last April. Family members are especially tough because you're so used to them being around that it takes a long time for you to realize, oh, they're actually gone. It's something you just can't quite fathom, right? Joshua Gibson, any Jeffrey Feiger stories? Not any recent ones, no. He's had some health issues. Former student of mine is a very high-ranking attorney at his office, though. And Jeffrey Feiger, in his prime, was one of the best trial attorneys who ever walked this planet. He was good, real good. Andrew Zubke, what's a killdozer? It's a reference to a guy in a movie who was pushed to the breaking point, and he decided that, yes, you can fight City Hall. You just need a really big killdozer. Daniel Kester points out there's a bird named a killdeer. Yes, there is. And I don't think that's being named for what it can do. Unless it choked the deer or something. Greer Severson, I love subscribing. Steve Lehto from Portland, Oregon. Well, thank you for doing that, my friend. Thank you for doing that. Kenneth Bennington just checking in from Albuquerque. Or, from time to time, I'll be quirky. Obscure Simpsons reference. PNWX Matt checking in from the beautiful Central Oregon. Yeah, Arts 4014 says you can Google killdozer and you'll get the whole story. Chris Stope, hi everyone from Blue Ash, Ohio. Robert Torrey, happy Groundhog Day Eve. I always thought that Groundhog Day, not the movie, but the event, was a bit of a scam until I realized that apparently it's a custom that goes back many, many years in many, many cultures. There are all kinds of cultures, like in Europe and Asia, where people claim that some ground dwelling being can predict the weather. Oh boy. Silent Hangus asked the Canary Robot Lady if she'll record an intro in Finnish. She would, but number one, people would assume that they got the wrong channel. And number two, they wouldn't recognize it as a language. They go, what's that noise? Arts 4014, I think Killdozer is a movie. It's reality. Wasn't there a movie called Killdozer? I just assumed that somebody made a movie out of it. I mean, I know the story. I just haven't studied it. Art Cook, my great great grandfather was Nazareth Paquette, French Canadian, 17th Michigan U.S. Army, Company G, saddler and assistant surgeon. Are we talking about the Civil War? That sounds like it, the 17th Michigan, Canadian history in Michigan. Before Michigan was a state, obviously there were indigenous people who lived here long before European people got here. And then, of course, there were French, and there were Canadians, and there were Americans, and there were British. There are all kinds of different flags flown, but also there's simply a lot of people here hanging out. some of whom, their legality may have been borderline. Chris Bulldog says there was a movie about a killing bulldozer. I mean, if there isn't, there ought to be, right? Dan Boyd, wild turkey comes in a bottle around here. Oh, I mentioned a couple weeks ago I had turkeys all over my yard for 2 or 3 days in a row. They were hanging out. And what's weird is there's snow on the ground, so they can't get much food off the ground. And I saw them in the bushes. They'd fly up into a bush and they'd be doing something up there. I don't know, they're eating buds or something. And then I noticed there's these tracks all over, and I put my drone up in the air and I got some great photographs, and it looks like I don't know, like a map of railroad tracks or something. It's all these tracks that were put in the ground by all these turkeys. It's kind of wild looking. Silent Hangus is the live version of Killdozer is better than the Hollywood production. Yeah, but could they make it into a musical? Killdozer, the musical. That's what we need. In fact, if somebody wants to make that, I will put up some money and start being a producer on it. Killdozer, the musical. Old Jarhead says, I had a relative that was a French woman, mail ordered bride by a French lumberjack in Roscommon, Michigan. I believe the story because of the authenticity of mentioning Roscommon, which was a lumbering area in the time frame within which someone might say, I really need a bride. I'm not going to hike all the way down to Detroit to look for one. But there were, I've heard stories before where I know that I've heard of Finnish people in America sending letters back to their relatives in Finland saying, if you can find a nice young single woman who wants to come and marry a Finn in America, send her over and I'll marry her. And the question always is who is profiting from this transaction, if anybody? Padres says there's a movie called Killdozer released in 1974. That means that we probably have to buy the rights to make it into a musical then. Yeah, and 858 Bill says, remember the guy in California that stole a tank from the National Guard outpost? Yeah, and stealing an army tank sounds like a lot of fun until you realize that the guy driving it usually can't fire the main gun. There's usually a driver position who's busy driving it while other people are shooting the weapons. So Vampire Bear 13 just finished watching the Kansas video, came here for the live. I appreciate that. Dan Boyd says, should they be female order brides? And we just spell it M-A-I-L after the F-E. Daniel Kester says that the correct name for a group of turkeys is a congress of turkeys. Okay, I'll buy that. Mark Sparks says Clint Walker starred in Killdozer. Jason Brinamore says Plymouth Township is getting 28 more flock cameras. Now I'm tracked my entire 45-minute drive to work every day. I got to tell you right now, I've been watching this in the news quite a bit, and there are some townships that are pushing back, and it's entirely based on people, grassroots, showing up at township and city and village council meetings and complaining. And it works. It works because what happens is the makers of these things come in and do a presentation and go, here's all the good stuff we can do for you. And they make it sound like, yeah, you're going to get all this great stuff. And who's going to object? So F-Type Stu, what's your take on the new EV charger? You mean the car, the charger, or the... I haven't actually seen one or studied it that closely, so I really can't speak to it. Art Cook, I'm ex-paparazzi, San Fernando Valley. Watch Popomedic YouTube. Thanks again. You're a rock star, Steve. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When I first visited Jay Leno's garage, he took me for a ride in his steam car. He also took me for a ride in a couple other cars, and we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden someone jumps out with a big camera with a big lens and takes a picture of us. And I go, what was that all about? He goes, paparazzi. They just take pictures. They may or may not be able to sell them. I go, yeah, but they can probably sell this one with, like, who's Jay Leno's new boy toy? He laughed. Jerry Dodge, you did a story on EV chargers being recalled for not being loud enough. Yes, I did, but he said the new EV chargers. There's something new about them. Vampire Bear, do you know where the huge old cemetery is in Detroit? There's several of them. The oldest is probably the Elmwood, which is where many of the founders of Detroit are buried, as well as Douglas Houghton, for instance. And the Elmwood Cemetery is very easy to find. It's got a great website. Look it up. They've got a map on that website where you can find almost anybody. And if that is what you're looking for, that is the old cemetery in Detroit, most likely the Elmwood, one word. John Michael Carmen says Steve's a jukebox hero. I remember when Foreigner was ruling the airwaves. Arts 4014, your cemetery story is very sad. Yeah, the story I did about the guy who bought a plot for him and his wife passed away, and he had her buried there. And then when he passed away, they told his family, oh, we're not burying any more people in the cemetery. We had problems. But we'll pay to move her someplace else. And meanwhile, it's an $11,000 headstone, which probably will cost a bunch of money to move. Very, very sad that they didn't figure that out earlier. Dan Boyd says, about 10 years ago, I saw a video of Jay Leno driving his replica Mercedes race car hauler on Mulholland, and he scraped it against something. I never saw that one. I'm not even sure about his replica race car hauler. I'm familiar with most of the vehicles in his shop, and that one doesn't ring a bell unless I just didn't register what it was and I walked by it. Kip Moore, I watch at least one of your videos each day, having fun while learning about law and my rights. Brilliant. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Andrew Zubke, have you faced off against a former student of yours in court? No. I mean, I've encountered them before. I'm trying to think if I ever had one on the opposite side of the V from me, though. I did bump into an old friend of mine yesterday at a mall, and it's somebody I hadn't seen in 20 years. And it's a guy who became a lawyer a couple of years after I did. And early in his career, I asked him to help me with a case. And so then he spent a week or two helping me with a trial I did. and I won the trial. And I've stayed in touch with him on and off over the years, but it just got the point where he's been very, very busy. He's got a big law firm. And I saw him at the mall, and he's like, how long's it been since we saw each other face to face? And I'm like, I think about 18 or 20 years. And it was pretty cool talking to him, exchange cards. We're going to have lunch one of these days. But yeah, he's come a long way. He now has 110 employees. Blah, blah, blah. I'd be surprised if Jay Leno owns any replicas, but he does. There are some replicas he buys simply because they're cool. And there are people out there making really good replicas. So it's one of those things where if somebody makes a replica that's good enough, he might buy it, and he won't tell people it's real. He'll tell people, honestly, this is a replica. So there you go. F-type, Stu, Orlando here. Coldest air in 16 years. I believe it. Stephanie Howe, the reselling of cemetery plots purchased decades ago is common. This wasn't that they resold the plot. They said they simply stopped burials because they had so many unmarked graves that people kept finding bones when they dug. But yeah, there's a bunch of issues that can arise in the funeral home or cemetery industry. I've read books on it. It's scary and sad. Steve, what's that to the right with the red circle? My right or your right? You mean that thing right there? That's a toy safe. I bought it at a flea market a couple years ago. It reminds me of a safe I had as a child. Matthias F. Lou, greetings from Berlin, Germany. Kind of cold here. Yeah, I always forget. I always think of people in other countries having just like neutral weather. It's like no, they have winter there too. Oh boy. Jay Chiss. Hey Steve, I'm originally from Jersey, but now I'm in Michigan. Where in Michigan? I know the state quite well. Shex Denmore, is there a legal definition of replica versus reproduction? I don't know. I mean, there might be a term of art in that industry. Reproduction might have a little bit more authenticity to it. Like if a company came back into business, started reproducing their older vehicles. But, I have a Cobra that's made by Backdraft. And I tell people it's a Backdraft Cobra replica. I don't ever tell anybody it's a real Cobra. Kenneth Bennington says it could hit 62 degrees in Albuquerque. Zafar Syed says, hey, you put on a video called Don't Buy a Burial Plot. Rent one instead. Daniel Kester, would you like a shirt with Lehto's Law on it? I've got a bunch. They say they have the Lehto's Law logo right about there. I just don't wear my camera that often. I think there might be one in my rotation. It pops up every 200 videos. Oh. 858 Bill doesn't like replicas. It takes away some of the coolness of having an original. Yeah, if you've got $3 million to buy an original Cobra, I can understand why you wouldn't want to buy a replica. But I think the cars are so cool. And by the way, the Cobra is an unusual animal because remember that Carroll Shelby saw the car, the AC Ace, and thought, hey, I can get that car, bring it to America, and if they'll allow me to, I can shoehorn a Ford into it, a Ford V8, and make a cool little race car out of it. So it's not like Carroll Shelby, hand drew that thing from the ground up or anything. But, it's an iconic style, and the cars are millions of dollars. So there have been replicas of those around for quite some time. Jay Chiss says, I'm in Erie, half a mile from Toledo. Where did you get the Southside Johnny t-shirt? I can't find one online. Someone sent it in to me. But yeah, you're down near the old Ohio-Michigan border there. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, no, I've also got a Jukes button that is on the set right above where my finger is, right there, which most people don't catch out of context like that. But I love Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. It's a great band. Southside Johnny's a great guy. For whatever reason, I'm convinced it's luck. Bruce Springsteen became a huge, huge rock and roll star, and Southside Johnny didn't. And they were starting the same place. They had a lot of the same sound. And Southside Johnny had great music, and it never got much airplay outside of New Jersey or New York, you know? And so I didn't hear him for the longest time. I saw him on David Letterman once. I'm like, who's this guy? You know? So Terry Rose, my mother bought an $8 plot for me when she got hers in Oklahoma. I don't like Oklahoma. Can I sell it? It depends. Does she still own it, or did she give it to you in a legal and binding sense? Obviously, you don't have to be buried there. I've known of situations where family members wanted to bury somebody someplace, and people said that's not where he or she wanted to be buried. Lewis Browning, I choose Hemi Orange for the new T-shirt that is coming. Okay, just understand if it's a really bright color, it won't get worn on camera. So here's a bright color. This cup is orange, and you can see what's happening to it with the lens. It's burning out. It's causing all kinds of things to happen with the screen. And so I tend to wear darker colors on camera. Papa Rogers, what size shirt do you wear? Double XL. People used to ask me that so often that I'd put it in the closing credits of my videos. And the problem is people go, oh, hey, he's begging for shirts. And I'm like, no, I'm not begging for shirts, but people keep sending me the wrong size. If it's the wrong size, I can't wear it. I'm sorry. You know, Johnny Z's WMMS would play Southside Johnny. Did they really? That's cool. I know MMS played a lot of their own type of music. They're like KROQ Los Angeles. In K-Rock's heyday, they played stuff no one else in the world was playing. And MMS, for many years, had great taste. It wouldn't surprise me at all. It reminds me of Michael Stanley. Michael Stanley's was a big guy in Ohio. Got a ton of play on MMS and other stations in Ohio. Not much anywhere else. And great singer. Great band. Skylar Perone says, hey, Steve, 12 inches of snow just north of, and is it Charlotte or Charlotte? Because Michigan would be Charlotte, but if it's North Carolina, it's Charlotte. I'm guessing it's Charlotte. Mr. B-Size Love spent many vacations on the old Mission Peninsula. Love it there. I've spent many vacations there too, my friend. I know people who own places out there. I've got a very good friend who's got a place in Leelanau right now. I've probably been on the old Mission Peninsula 20 or 30 summers, give or take. Know the area very, very well. Lewis Browning says this one is 3XL. Well, in that case, I probably can't wear it, unless it's a small 3XL. $858 Bill, the collector car world's gotten complex. Got too complex. Originals, replicas, reproductions, resto mods, clones. And of course, you've got that whole argument about, like, let's suppose that you found a car in a junkyard and they'd removed every single part of it except for the firewall and the front pieces that hold the fenders on. That's it. But the firewall's got the VIN tag on it. And you rebuild it. Is that a replica or is that, what is that? And I know that there are some cars out there that are like that, where the amount of originality on it ain't much more than the VIN tag. Richard Thomas, ever hunt Petoskey stones? Yeah. There's a town called Petoskey. It's the stone. It's the stone of Michigan. Mark Miller, what's new on the Lehto's pasties tiff? I'm just not going to go there, literally. Steve BM, I love the Buzzard out of Cleveland and the Blitz out of Columbus. Reminds me of the Stefan skits from Saturday Night Live. If you're looking for fun, New York's hottest nightclub is Slice. It has everything you're looking for. The Buzzard, the Blitz. Nixter, how's your brother JJ doing? I always think of him as more of a cousin. JJ Lehto. Sultan of Cardio, have you heard about the celebrity who just got caught under Florida's new super speeder law? Yes, I did. Remind me who it was. Not somebody you necessarily relate to being a fast driver, but I didn't do a story on it because to me it was kind of like just that I guess got a single hook. So-and-so got a ticket. Oh, okay. 116-3562. Wouldn't that be a rebuilt salvage title? Only if the original title was salvage. The Car of Theseus, Prit Paul Mahal. That's correct. Yeah, Johnny Z says Michael Stanley sold out 2 days at Richfield, where the venue had 17,000 capacity. That's a very large venue. And of course, Richfield Coliseum is basically his home, is his home field, right? And some of the guys' music was so good. And he had one song that got airplay outside of Ohio. And I worked in radio. And one of the things I feel worst about when I talk about radio is how the playlists were chosen, how good music didn't get played. Belio says I bought Petoskey stones off of eBay. Vinny Sluga says American Murder House is on audiobook on Libby. Yeah, you can also buy it as an audiobook wherever you download audiobooks from, or you can buy it and get the CDs. DC, I got a stupid question about leaving your car on for 10 minutes while you run inside the store while your dog is in the car. Is that legal? And interestingly, states that talk about this, I did not see a single one that gives an exemption for having an animal in the vehicle. So I didn't even mention that in the video, and it's something I should have because it's kind of weird. Yeah, Mexican Specs, she's an Olympic runner, so I guess she does have a thing for speed. Normally, it's running though, right? Randall Green, how many hobbies do you have? Cars, history. I metal detect. I mountain bike if that's a hobby. I do run somewhat. Trying to think. I got a few others. I collect some oddball stuff. Shex Denmark, ever go Uper light hunting? Not personally, but I know people who do. The thing about Uper lights is there are these rocks on the shores of Great Lakes. If you shine them with a black light, they glow. And people just discovered them fairly recently. They nicknamed them Uper lights because they find them up in the UP. And the problem is that when you bring one home, it doesn't glow unless you shine a black light on it. So. Yeah, Richard Thomas says that you really have to find the stones for it to count. You know, it's like an arrowhead. You know, if you buy it, that's one thing, but if you find it, it's another. Mark Miller, are you at all interested in the Olympics? Winter Olympics, almost zero. I never got into Winter Olympics. Just never did. Summer Olympics, I'll watch a few things. I'll watch the marathon. I'll watch some track and field. But I'm not as into. When I was a kid, I was into it. Yeah, but no. Standard deviation is YouTube a hobby? Some people think so. Johnny Z says He Can't Love You Like I Love You was played on American Top 40 for 1 week. Yes, I said they had one song that got airplay outside of Ohio. One song, and that was it. But he has another song called Rosewood Bitters. Rosewood Bitters. That is a fantastic song. And Joe Walsh covered it, and they both did great versions of it. They're different versions. But they're both very, very good. $858 Bill says watching Lehto's Law could be a hobby. David P., how many Eddie Bauer t-shirts do you have? Well, I've probably got 30 or so. And then I've got an Eddie Bauer jacket. I've got Eddie Bauer shirts that are not t-shirts. I got all kinds of Eddie bar stuff. I like Eddie. It's extremely high quality stuff. It's comfortable and I like it. But the bulk of these shirts were sent in by viewers. I've got some duplicates as a result. Oh, MHOA, I prefer winter hockey in the Olympics. Yes. That's if you said, Steve, is you got to watch one thing, Olympic hockey, obviously. Yeah, I agree with that. Aaron Freeman reminds us of biathlon. Arts 4014, same thing. Oh. At Sumari, ever considered going back into radio? Not full time and not like as a full job or anything, but I've said before, if anybody knows of a radio station where they let some old guy come in and be a guest disc jockey for one night, I would do it. And I did that once with the people at WLLW, The Wall. Shut up and rock. Oh, that was a while ago. That was back in 2018, I think. Johnny Z. Bradley, I saw half a dozen concerts at Richfield. Okay. Steve, I love the curling. The curling. Bob Kerflugen, what about curling? I've mentioned this before. Curling, when it's women's curling, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but if you look at the people down at one end of the rink, it looks like a bunch of librarians on their smoke break because they're all leaning on brooms, they're wearing windbreakers, and they're just chit-chatting. I know it's a sport. I know it's a game. I understand that, but that's what it looks like to me. Old Jarhead, radio is dead for all practical purposes. Yeah, that is the terrestrial radio. Old Jarhead, Steve needs a Sirius XM channel. Now that I would do. I'd program an XM channel, Sirius XM. Hogbone, Michael Stanley was so great. MHO finally got a college station in Denver. And then, of course, the college and high school stations are the ones where you realize, okay, this is why we don't just let anybody play any music they want. GRB Chaser, per your question, you could get a radio gig spot possibly in Amarillo. But I don't know anybody there. I'm not going to start calling stations at random. But if somebody were to know a program director and say, hey, there's this guy with a channel that's got over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube who'd like to come in and be a disc jockey. And by the way, he knows what he's doing because he used to be one. Are you interested in having him? And I don't care where it is, I'll go. So you say, hey, Steve, we found a station in, Elk Nose, Alaska. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down for it. Alex M., have you been to Canada? Canada is Michigan's backyard. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, they're that close. I've been to Canada 3 times or 4 times last year just to see concerts. And anytime you run the Free Press Marathon or half marathon, you run over the bridge into Canada. You run around Canada, but you come back. So there was a time in my history, in my life, where you could cross the border and they take your word on it. For what country you're from? U.S. Okay. What country you're from? U.S. Okay. That's how you cross the border both ways. GRB Chaser, who does the quotes at the end of the videos? That would be Heather, the Canadian robot lady. She said she's going to try to check in today. She checks in here from time to time. And I've known her now, almost 10 years. And she worked in radio also. And so I asked her if she'd do some voiceover work for me. She is a professional voiceover artist also. Although some people were trying to tell me she wasn't real. And I had people going, but see, that's the whole point. They fooled you too. They fooled you. I've talked to her on the phone many times. It would be a very, very complex hoax if they did it. GRB Chaser, I might know a guy. I have a great friend that's a DJ. There you go. And by the way, they don't have to pay me. I'm not looking for money. Oh. Carl's Corner 4820 passport. Oh, now you need one. Yeah. Yeah, now you need a passport. But you did not need a passport when I was in high school. I mean, if you drove yourself to the border, you'd have your driver's license. But I crossed the border in my lifetime, I'm betting dozens and dozens of times with no ID on me because I was just a passenger in a car or something. Prit Paul Mahal, are there Michiganders or Michiganians who haven't been to Canada? Probably. I've met people in the Lower Peninsula who haven't crossed the Mackinac Bridge to go to the Upper Peninsula. So, Vampire Bear 13, need a passport to visit Canada now? Yeah, it's been that way for a while, pretty much since 9/11. And getting back into the U.S. And by the way, don't get me wrong. You might be able to get into Canada, but you want to be able to get back into the U.S. Jason Brindamar says WRIF is still playing the exact same songs they're playing when I graduated in 94. As soon as Dave and Chuck are over, I'm out. Yeah, that's a complaint that radio stations that have a format. The question is, you're playing rock and roll. Do you always play the Rolling Stones? Go, probably. Do you always play Satisfaction? You know, and after a while, Satisfaction has been played on oldies stations, not just classic rock stations. And so if you start moving up with the music, do you play the new stuff by the hard rock bands? And that's a big debate, you know, and so that's one of the things that often causes trouble. Joshua Gibson, are you old enough to have attended the Goose Lake Festival? I forgot when that was. I heard of it. I did not go. I've not been to many festival type shows. I'm taking the watch off, by the way. I keep feel like it's scraping on the desk. I've not been to many festivals to begin with. But yeah, I've heard of that, but I've not been there. Frank JC says Heather isn't AI. She pronounces words correctly. I had a guy contact me. Goes, I'm a professional voiceover artist, and I'd like to replace that stupid AI voice you're using. And I go, well, that's a real person. He goes, no, it's not. That's AI. I go, it's a real person. Her name is Heather. And he's going, I can't believe you fell for that. I'm like, dude, you're a professional voiceover and you can't recognize a human voice? Come on. James Thompson says any U.S. citizens can show up at a U.S. border and get in. They might delay you a bit. Yeah, the question is, how long do they delay you? Because if you show up at the border and go, I'm a U.S. citizen, I got no ID on me, it's going to raise all kinds of flags. You left the country without it? Was it stolen? What's going on there? And then, of course, in this day and age, what if you had a cell phone on you and you had all kinds of social media that they dug through and did, you know, there's a chance you might not these days. Joshua, Goose Lake was 1970. Yeah, probably a little bit before my time in regards to going to see shows. John Michael Karma was at Goose Lake. It was awesome. I forgot who played there, but it was a pretty big show from that era. Hogbone says deep tracks or album tracks might find popularity for a while in terrestrials. Yeah, and here's the biggest problem is that I've read books on programming. I've read books written by program directors. I've read books on radio. And most radio stations programmed defensively. So what they did was they would say, we've got 100 possible songs. And you go through them, and if you find one song that some people don't like, you just get rid of it. Now you got 99 songs. Well, there's another song over here that some people don't like. Get rid of it. And we're getting rid of songs in the hope of finding nothing but songs everyone likes. It's not going to happen. The trick is to play songs that most people like, and the songs that they don't like aren't so offensive that they'll tune out, that they'll stick around and go, okay, they're playing one I don't like, but I'll come back to it. If I'm listening to an oldies station and I hear Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison, I want to punch the radio. I want to drive to the radio station and punch the programmer. And I love Van Morrison. And I used to love that song. But they decided that was a song that was safe. Everybody likes that song. Not anymore, we don't. So DePaul says Border Patrol would detain you and attempt to use facial recognition. Yeah, but once they identify you, it's not the issue. In that case, just throw away your passport because they'll eventually identify you. The point is that they would have the right to detain you. And remember that you don't have all your constitutional rights at the border. And so they can go through all your stuff, unlock your phone, unlock your laptop. Let me dig through your wallet. So you wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, Dan Boyd, now they fixate on and wear out all of the most popular songs. Does Stairway to Heaven ever need to be played on the radio again? And by the way, I've been listening to radio, just flipping around, and I catch them coming out of Stairway to Heaven, and a disc jockey goes, that was Led Zeppelin. Stairway to Heaven. You don't say. You don't say. Bob Blah Blah reminds us that Carl Malden said, all you need is an American Express card. Don't leave home without it. And also those traveler's checks. Remember those? John Michael Carmus' Van Morrison said in an interview, I wish I'd never written that song. It wouldn't surprise me, although I love to see the money he gets from all the airplay. So. Oh, Janie Segrist, I had a heart attack because I couldn't breathe. You guys almost lost me. Are you okay? I hope it was a false alarm, or if it was a scare that at least you can figure it out and do something. But yeah. Daniel Kester lately been listening to Bobby Bear. Yeah, Kite Fan Real ID. Yeah, and there's all kinds of different, enhanced ID, Real ID, all kinds of stuff. Jason Brindamar, I hope I can make it to the Coyote versus Acme viewing to meet Steve, but also Canadian Robot Lady. Wonder what she looks like because nobody on radio ever looks like what you think. Well, I hope you can make it too. Janie, I'm better now. Well, that's good. I got better. Victoria Jason, I thought you rotated t-shirts. This looks familiar. Yes, but how long has it been since I wore this shirt? I actually check. Because I have accidentally worn the same shirt 2 weeks in a row, even though they're a week apart and it got washed. I'm like, people are going to go, hey, you wore the same shirt. So I actually go and look at like the last 5 or 6 shirts and make sure I wore one that hasn't been in there for a while. 107 Drones, is the $100 bill always in the videos? Yes. Sometimes they can't find it. You're not looking hard enough. I guarantee you that it's always there and somebody will always find it. So go through the comments and someone's going to say, yes, it's like I did one this past week where it was behind this arm. So if my arm was down and I wasn't moving, you couldn't see it. But as I was moving around, you could. And I thought it was better on camera than it was, but it worked. Luna Manar says, I remember the most excited I ever felt to hear a track on the radio. The entire unedited track of Fire on High by ELO, early track, played in a classic rock station in the early 2000s just randomly. Yeah, and they don't often play instrumentals either because they tend to think the instrumentals are missing something psychologically. You don't hear that very often either. $858 Bills is when MMS used to run down the top 100 rock songs of all time. Number one would invariably be either Stairway to Heaven or Freebird. What's really funny is some radio stations, like top 40 stations, used to put out lists at the end of the year. And I remember one year, a radio station, they said these are the top songs of all time. But it was the year that Kung Fu Fighting came out by Carl Douglas. And they put it in the top 5. of all time. Oh boy. M. Kolba had Wisconsin time machines, TYME. Early ATMs will just take your money everywhere. TYME. I always called it the money wall. And I'd go pray at the money wall to see if it would give me money or not. I actually knew a woman who was an attorney who was the attorney of counsel in the state of Michigan for Moneyline, ML, which was one of the things that you'd see at to let you know if you could use your card at a particular ATM. Janice Ellery, since you mentioned ELO, I hope Jeff Lynne is okay. I've not heard anything recently. I know he's had some health issues. I saw them a little over a year ago in Detroit. Wonderful show. Robert Torres, don't forget about Won't Get Fooled Again. I was driving around yesterday in a vehicle that had a Sirius XM in it. I was scanning through channels, and I hit a channel, and they go, "Yeah, now here's Pinball Wizard by The Who." I thought, I haven't heard this song in a long time. about two lines, and I'm like, yeah, that's enough. Kenneth Bennington's song recommendation, ELO's Can't Get It Out of My Head. Oh, they got a bunch of good songs. Corey Egler, when I was a kid in Traverse City, my dad lived in New Hampshire. We crossed over to Canada at Port Huron and back to the U.S. at Niagara Falls with no passport. Yeah, I've crossed over at all three crossings, Detroit and Windsor, Port Huron, Sarnia, Sault Ste. Marie, and Sault Ste. Marie. And but when I was a little kid, I mean, we took field trips to Canada. You load up a bus with a bunch of little kids, and at the border, the guide step in and go, anybody here not born in the U.S.? And 1 year, there was a girl who was born out of the country because her parents were missionaries. She got to raise her hand, and she had to have paperwork. Luckily, the teacher knew that was going to happen. Vildoca Valley. Love you, Steve. Shout out to your awesome wife as well. Yes. I would be nothing without her. Oh, Frank JC III says we had Money Access Center, or the MAC. The MAC. I've not heard of that one either. Not heard of that one. Steve says the money says Michael Jackson Thriller was the best song of all time. Yeah, it's hard to, if you start saying best and good versus just number one or number two, because you can theoretically, working off of charts, say like what song was number one for the longest, that kind of thing. But I liked Beat It better, but that's because it had Eddie Van Halen on it. Bob Blah Blah says in 1970, an ATM ate his card and it said it didn't have $5. I've never used an ATM again. I remember using ATM cards to get $5 out of a money wall before. But money was worth more back then, you know? Yeah, Robert Torre, Casey Kasem, Walking on Sunshine, and now a dead dog from Cincinnati. That was always, there were some outtakes that somebody leaked of Casey Kasem flipping out because a producer had written up one of his long distance dedications or some letter written in by a viewer and handed it to him. And then he was supposed to go from that into like some real up-tempo song. And of course, dear Casey, our family had a dog for 17 years, and it helped my mother get through cancer and helped my father after the mine collapse and helped my little brother after his little sister was tragically killed in a crane accident in front of the house. And that little dog, Snuffy, he died yesterday. Could you please dedicate a song to Snuffy? And the next song is Walking on Sunshine. And Casey blows up and starts screaming, "You can't do this. You can't." It's like when Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. Craig Hunter, the Allman Brothers are the only band that could get away with instrumentals on the radio. Yes. I love the Allman Brothers. I saw them play back in about 1980. I saw them play at Pine Knob. Obviously, Dwayne was there. Uh, um, Greg was there. Dwayne was not. Sorry about that. Never saw Dwayne. But I have an older brother who saw Dwayne and the Allman Brothers play at Cobo Hall a lot earlier and put on an amazing show. Dickie Betts was the guy on guitar when I saw them. And, you know, just taking guitar playing to a whole nother level. Yeah, Vinny Sluga, they had to put their dog down a little over a week ago. Sorry to hear that, my friend. Miko Angel, Bob blah blah. Is your name really Bob blah blah? Lock Watcher, Casey Caseman's still in syndication. I heard him yesterday on Sirius XM. I think it's the 60s channel. On the weekends, they will occasionally just pick a day and run a Casey Kasem top 40. And it's always fun, especially when you hear the ones that are between 30 and 40 that never made it up any higher, because a lot of them have just gotten lost to history. Arts 4014 says the keyboard on an ATM is upside down in Japan. If you typed your password wrong 3 times, it kept your card. Guess how I know? And they did not have numbers you could recognize on it. Andy New York says the greatest song ever is Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. Saw them do it live at Nebworth in '79. Awesome song. I like Kashmir a lot. If I got to hear a Zeppelin song, it's going to be Kashmir when the levee breaks. But I'm reading the book The Uncool right now. Uncool by Cameron Crowe, who was a longtime writer for Rolling Stone magazine and others, and he interviewed artists. And he got to hang out with Led Zeppelin right around Physical Graffiti came out, and he talks all about hanging out with them. Like, he's literally touring with them. He got to embed himself in the tour, and he did that with a bunch of bands. He did it with the Allman Brothers also back then. And some of the stories are just amazing. It's a fascinating book. I'm not done with it yet, but I'll review it in the future. Lost Town Streets, the usual background is a special built background for streaming. Cool. Even I have a built background as I moved to a new location. Well, no, so yeah, that's what this is. This is a replica of the wall at my old studio. And then when I moved, I missed it. So I had one rebuilt. Oh, boy. Yeah, B. Torres is Top Gear, Jessica. And Bob Blah Blah says the Allman Brothers are the soundtrack to Top Gear. They've obviously a great taste in music. Jason Brindamar says there are way too many great Zeppelin songs. Yeah, no, they're one of the bands that was very consistent. Although I know Into the Outdoor really bothered a lot of people. It wasn't really hard enough. But that's a minor thing. That's a minor thing. 18 2Q KFTW. I have that Zeppelin 4 CD set. I've got the box set of the complete Zeppelin CDs, old school. Dr. Ricks, you listen to Bill O'Reilly? No. The freak out he had wasn't live on camera. It was recorded by somebody else and leaked. And a lot of radio shows got a hold of it. We'll do it live. Oh, boy. Standard deviation, is the wall a replica or a reproduction? I would say it's a reproduction, because I think I have authority to reproduce a wall that I owned. I sold it, but I owned it. And when I had the reproduction commissioned, I still owned the original. And the guy, I said, I want you to make me an exact replica of this, but I think it's a reproduction. I do. Old Jarhead hated In Through the Outdoor. Many people did. Many people did. 65 is not elderly. Says I paid $12.50 to see Zeppelin at MSG in June of '77, and of course, back then $12.50, but nowadays $12.50 is not even enough to cover the service fee for Ticketmaster or whoever. But yeah, Madison Square Garden. I've never seen a show there, but I know they've had a lot of great shows. In fact, I believe Grand Funk Railroad played there a couple of times. Oh boy. Yeah, DePaul says Howard Stern used to play the old Bill O'Reilly Meltdown. That's one of the places I heard it. That's also one of the places I heard the Casey Kasem freak out about, you can't have me read these sad dedications right before we go into a happy song or vice versa. So Hoffbug says Zappa had some good guitar work. Yeah, no, he did. And interesting about Zappa, and we talked about him before here, musical genius. I mean, and he's also just a genius in general. If you talk to him, watch interviews with him. He was so fast and so intelligent, but put out a lot of good music. Vinny Sluga, can you please send a shout out to my mom, Annie Sluga? She's been upset for a week about the passing of the family dog. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, my friends, Annie and Vinny and company. We are all thinking of you. Angels Don't Fall says, want to say hi from 90F, Southern California. Dougie, do you ever seen a show at Red Rocks? No. I've seen film. I've seen video. So Ryan 8034, I think over 10 million people liked In Through the Outdoor. Oh, it did very, very well. I'm simply pointing out that many people get upset when a band matures, ages, or changes anything. And there were probably some people out there who hated Sgt. Pepper because they liked Twist and Shout so much. Padre says the Casey Kasem freakout is on YouTube. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, old Jarhead Bobby Brown. I assume you mean the song by Frank Zappa. Hey, everybody, it's Bobby Brown. I've mentioned that song before because if you listen to it, it's a great song. You listen to the words, it'll scare you. Image Doc Ray, Steve, did you see California's assembly just passed legislation to start tracking people's mileage in order to start taxing up to 9 cents per mile driven? Now on its way to the state Senate. I'd heard that. I'm not going to cover that unless they pass it. And I have a hard time imagining that they'll pass it, but we'll see. Because that's the kind of thing that's going to tick off a lot of people and probably inspire a lot of odometer tampering. Mark Miller, I've never gotten Zappa. I listen, I just don't get him. Well, what'd you listen to? Valley Girl? Joe's Garage? No, it's just funny because the guy had a long career, very, very well respected by other musicians, and a lot of great music. Arts 4014, have you heard about or read Zappa's testimony before Congress? I remember he testified there, and I remember that a lot of people, it was like when Dee Snider testified there. People just assume that these guys are goofballs because they're on stage jumping around. It's like some of them are very smart, you know? Given Zero Fox 968, I used to see Steve Miller Band every time he came to Pine Knob back in the 80s and early 90s. I never saw Steve Miller, but I've seen dozens and dozens of shows at Pine Knob. Yeah, Vampire Bears. Zappa gave Alice Cooper his start. Yeah, Zappa was one of the first people to actually see Alice Cooper and go, I think there's something here. Oh, DePaul paid $8 to see an NBA playoff game at Madison Square Garden in 1973. Court seats row J. Jason Brindamar, if I scan across the station and they're playing Red Wine, which version? UB40? I'll stop the dial for it. Nostalgia. Andy, New York, should the Stones have broken up after the drummer died? Many drummers have died. Are you thinking of the Who? Silent Hangus, did you cut back your videos to one a day? Yeah, about 6 months ago. I swear I used to get 2 or 3 notifications a day for your videos. Yes, and I've mentioned this before, that I can put up 2 videos, I can put up 1 video, I can put up 3 videos, and I get the exact same number of views regardless. So I'll have 1 video and I'll pick up 100,000 views. I'll put up 2 videos, 50,000 each. I'll put up 3, 33,000 each. And I'm like, why am I putting all this effort into these? And if, so right now it's working. We'll see what happens. Yeah, Dougie D reminds us the Rush drummer died also. Well, as you'll know, that is also a joke from Spinal Tap about drummers. John Michael Karma, current value of 2 pre-1965 dimes is now $12. So are they really 60 times face right now? I mean, that's a lot. Although the problem is you can't sell them for that. They always act like, oh no, if you're selling to us, we get a huge discount. But we'll sell them to you at full price. Given Fox 968 also saw Guns N' Roses opening for Aerosmith in August of '88. Wow. Aerosmith has always been big, but you have to remember Guns N' Roses ruled the planet in '88 and '89, '89 in particular. Vampire Bear says Alice Cooper's best song is Might As Well Be on Mars. I would say it's I Never Cry. I like the ballads. $182QKFTW. John Denver went to high school about a half mile from me now. What was his real name? He had a real less common last name before he changed it to Denver. 1163562. I have a couple pre-64 coins. I've got a few too. I've also found a bunch of the metal detector. Steve BM, you should do a video for members only. What members? Oh boy. Joe Lontrue says Deutschendorf. That sounds familiar. Oh, Steve says the silver dime is $6. It was $7. Yeah. So one of the common things is how many times face value is it? I remember when 10 times face was a big deal. 64 dimes worth $1. Now it's worth 6 or 7. That's crazy. Yeah, 182 Dusseldorf or something. It's German for or something. Terry Rose, legal name Henry John Dutchendorf Jr. And M. Don agrees. Blah, blah, blah. My real name is Robert Labowski, Esquire. Bob Labo. Oh. Stop spamming him. Alice Cooper's good friends with Groucho Marx. I've heard that. Given Fox, do you use your X account? Yes. I post every day twice. Actually, I post every day once, and it's usually just a link to my current video. And I occasionally post other stuff, but not that often. I've got like 4,000 alleged followers there. Lock Watcher, speaking of lawsuits, remember when Queen sued about Under Pressure? You mean for Ice Ice Baby? One of the worst ripoffs of all time. Steve G, if I knew it was free, I would have subscribed to your channel a long time ago. Oh, I did not know that John Denver's father was an Air Force pilot. I just know that John Denver died in a plane accident. Lost Town says you could translate Düsseldorf into just a German village. Oh. Vampire Bear says Alice Cooper pretty much was just vaudeville, which is why the vaudeville guys and gals loved him. That's interesting. I never thought of that before. It makes sense. Believe in yourself says, Steve, I checked. I'm one of those alleged followers. Yeah. See, the thing is, if you subscribe to me or follow me on Twitter, all you're going to get is one tweet a day. And it's just, here's my latest video. And you know, I've been doing that for a long time. But, you know. Richard Thomas, I think John Denver's plane crashed due to location of the fuel switch on the experimental craft. Yes, the Long Easy. And the fuel switch that changed tanks was behind his shoulder, and John Denver was short, and I believe he had a pillow behind him so he could reach the pedals properly. And he had recently bought the plane and was taking it up either for the first time or one of the first times, and just didn't catch the fact that he was on the wrong fuel tank. And by the time he caught it, couldn't get it switched and stalled over the ocean. Mark Miller, what color is the Gatorade today? It is light yellow. It's mixed. It's watered down. Matthias, who in fact is German, says Dusseldorf means literally small town at the river Dussel. So we wanted to talk about a town in the river Weser. Would that be Wieserdorf? Two Left Thumbs' worst ripoff of all time was the Fugees' Ready or Not. The entire track they sang over was an uncredited long sample of Enya's something or other. But there's also a song called Ready or Not that was done with the Stylistics that they also ripped off. I mean, so much of that stuff is just stolen that it's, and don't get me wrong, if they pay for it, that's nice, but it's just, come on, you have any imagination? Barbie McBee, I just watched your Blue October video. I was at the same show. I love those guys. Were you really? So where were you in relationship to me? Because I was in the front row in the far right corner, as noted previously. And I got the bro hug from from Justin. So that's a great show. M. Dawn, I didn't know that about John Denver's crash. I saw a documentary about it where they went in and looked at the NTSB reports and so on. So Dan Boyd, Alice Cooper is a very good golfer. I've heard that also. And he does not drink. Carl's Corner, if John D read the manual, he might be alive today. Or if he'd simply listen to the guy, because apparently the guy who familiarized him with the plane offered to help him some more. And he's like, no, I'm cool. I got it. Vampire Bear, Alice Cooper is a huge baseball fan and is part owner of the Diamondbacks. I did not know that. John Nowak is alive in Corpus Christi. Just check in. Barbie, I was on the other side, 7th row. I wish I'd seen you. I've been watching your channel for a few years. Well, I've seen them 5 times, and I've talked about them pretty much sure every single time. I saw Justin do his open book show at the beginning of the year, and I saw him the year before, I think, at the Fillmore. And I've also seen him at the Machine Shop in Flint, and I've seen him a bunch of places. Royal Music Theater. Absolutely, I will go see them anywhere. Love that band. Johnny Z. Bradley, I used to think Denver was a skiing accent. No, but that was Sonny Bono. So Daniel Zarnecki, why don't you tell them the truth, the whole story behind the Killdozer and the injustice? Why don't you? I wasn't trying to cover anything up, if that's what you're getting at. Terry Rose says that John Denver was in Battle of the Network Stars. He skied in a competition. Really? Okay. Arts 4014 says, well, wait, which one was the one that was married to Cher? He's Sonny and Cher. Uh-oh. John Michael Karma. Killdozer truth now. Oh, Barbie McBee, I've seen them 6 times. I'm in Fort Wayne, and I try never to miss them. Going to open book at House of Blues in a couple of weeks. That is a fantastic show. If you haven't seen it yet, absolutely fabulous. And I'm here to tell you that it's just amazing. And I've told people this who don't know anything about the band. Justin Furstenfeld's the lead singer and primary songwriter of Blue October, a great front man. He can play instruments. He can sing. I like the band a lot. But he had some, shall we say, personal issues, which he survived, partly because he wrote music about it. I think the music was probably therapeutic. And so it's kind of interesting to see a guy who's singing about this stuff and so authentic, and he survived it. And he's so grateful now. And, he comes out there and he's not doing this stuff like, you're the greatest audience ever. He comes out and he's like, thank you for being here. I'm grateful. Like he is. It's just unbelievable. Arts 4014 says first rule of Killdozer is don't talk about Killdozer. 116-3562 into the ocean. End it all. Yeah, that is an interesting juxtaposition, we would say. M. Dawn, I'm still snowed and iced in here in Middle Tennessee. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the snow is bad, but the ice is what gets you because ice can take out power lines and so on. Richard Thomas missed John Prine. Always wanted to see him. I saw John Prine in Austin City Limits, and I'd never heard of him before. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's good. But he had a style of music that kind of fell between the designations and didn't get a lot of airplay as a result. And oh boy, I keep doing that. Hang on. But right before John Prine died, he put out a song called Summer's End. It is a tearjerker of a song. It is really, really good. I would highly recommend it. Dan Boyd, I saw King Crimson in Cincinnati Music Hall. Robert Fripp, but the question is Tony Levin playing bass or somebody else? Sean M, I just subscribed to your X channel. Did not know you had it. Hey, I forget I have it too. Bob blah blah. Did you get my email about strict liability and mens rea? Yes, I did. I meant to ask you about that. We'll have to follow up because I'm not 100% certain what you're talking about. So we'll get there. Carl's Corner, Steve's new alt channel, will be music and interviews with artists. I'd love to do that. Don't know anybody would watch it, but I'd love to do that. Johnny Z. Bradley. Wasn't Killdozer part of that hit songwriting team? Holland, Killdozer, Holland. I think Killdozer is spelled Killdozier. You missed the I. Oh boy. Terry Rose says so many Steves have channels. Dan Boyd said, believe Tony Levin was there playing the stick. Yeah, Tony Levin is, and I'll admit, I'm not normally an instrument guy, like where I'm going to go, oh, I love this band because the bass player. Tony Levin is the exception to that rule because he tours with Peter Gabriel. So I've seen him play live a bunch of times, and I've seen him in other bands. And right now he's touring with a group called the Stickmen. And he also has toured with King Crimson. And he is one of the greatest bass players who has ever lived. Go to his website and look at all the albums that he has played on. He's played on hundreds of records that you've heard and you enjoyed, and it was him playing bass. But he can play the stick, the Chapman stick, and then he also plays a regular bass, but he is so astoundingly good that I've been to a Peter Gabriel show, and Peter Gabriel knows how to put on a show. And I've watched it. I spent half time watching Tony Levin playing the bass. It's amazing. Dirk Rameswinkle, hey, Steve, I learned a new word, redound. Will that redound to your benefit? I hope it will. Daniel Zarnecki says, hey, Steve, I'm out here in McHenry County, Illinois, home of Woodstock, which, of course, I believe you're referencing is from the movie Groundhog Day. Famous for Punxsutawney Phil and Groundhog Day, but also we got turkeys all over the place, and they sleep in the trees. Yeah, I've seen that before. Very wild. John Michael Karma thinks they may have been the ones who wrote that song, My Killdozers Are Back, and you're going to be in trouble. Oh, boy. Given of Ox, Blues Traveler, Rush, Black Crowes Live, Lenny Kravitz. Used to see him every time they came through Detroit or Ann Arbor. Image Doc races Tony Levin is one of the nicest men I've ever met. I've never met the guy. But he appears to have a sense of humor. I've seen interviews with him, and he comes across like a very, very nice guy. I think he's been on Rick Beato. I could be wrong, but I think he's been on Rick Beato. Yeah, Hoffbug says Tony Levin with the funk fingers. He occasionally will put these things on. They're almost like extensions for his fingers, but they clip onto his fingertips. And then there's a thing, and then there's a thing at the end, and he hits those in the strings. Just as if playing bass wasn't hard enough. Joshua Gibson, do you watch The Professor of Rock? I've seen a few of his videos, but not many. But I'm familiar with them. There's just so many videos on YouTube, so many channels that there's some I watch once in a while, but I wind up, I go down the rabbit hole of arrest videos, arrests and high-speed chases. I could watch those things all day long. Padre, I sat on the edge of the stage in front of the speakers at a Rosington Collins show in Macon, Georgia. Standard deviation, loudest concert I ever went to is Bruce Springsteen. Now, here's the thing. I've gone to a couple loud shows. The Allman Brothers I mentioned earlier, I was in the fifth row, but I was really, really close to a wall of speakers. And that was in high school. And I remember at the time going, okay, that's crazy. But I also went to a Ted Nugent show at Cobo Hall in Detroit in 1989 or 90. And I believe that was the loudest thing I've ever been near. And I've been to hydroplane races. I've been in a B-17 bomber. I've driven a NASCAR engine-powered car. Ted Nugent's PA was so loud you could probably hear it in space. Physically, you actually felt the sound waves crushing your chest, and I was not that close. So. Oh, Vampire Bear says, yeah, Tony Levin was on Rick Beato in September of 2024. Okay, I was reasonably certain, but every now and then I'll because when I watched the video, I was glad to see that he was on there, but I remember more about Tony Levin. Although I love Rick Beato. Given of Ox says AC/DC loudest concert at Joe Louis Arena. I know people who were at shows at Joe Louis AC/DC. They said number one is a great show and it was loud. Jerry Dodge, I can imagine hearing Stranglehold at high volume. Just what the doctor ordered. I like the earlier stuff. Arts 4014, Ted Nugent knocked you in 1990. Yeah, it was the Whiplash Bash. Vinny Sluga says homeowners had a win against an HOA in Florida. Silent Hangus, when you say blah, 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 are you saying blah, blah, blah or blah, blah, blah? Oh, boy. 65 is not elderly asks, who pays when a stolen car runs into another car? When a cop car runs into a stolen car or when a cop... And see, this is one of those reasons that you have insurance. Because there's a high-speed chase and somebody runs into your car, well, your insurance is going to cover it. Now, you might be able to sue the cops depending on what state you're in, because in some states, you can sue them despite immunity for the negligent operation of an automobile. However, they're going to say, we weren't operating negligently. We were chasing this guy. We had to. Hogbone, my first Nugent concert was 50 years ago in Montgomery. No wonder he's deaf. Jason Brindamar, my dad has handy cam footage from Pink Floyd in Detroit. What year would that have been? Steve BM. Oh, hey, Canadian Robot Lady is in the house, stopping by to say hi. She just said hello. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you. Is the Joe Louis Arena still there? No. The Joe Louis Arena was a arena near Cobo Hall in Detroit, and it was where, for instance, the Detroit Red Wings played hockey, and other things happened there, but also they had concerts there. I saw a bunch of shows there as well. But they tore it down a couple years ago. And I remember running the Free Press marathons from downtown Detroit, coming around the corner, and there's nothing there. It's like, wait, where did the arena go? Oh, they tore it down. Lion Zookeeper, many shows at the Machine Shop in Flint. If you're in the front of the small club, yeah, it's an awesome venue, but it's about the size of a phone booth. Or imagine a small gas station. I think it used to be a machine shop, but it's tiny. It's tiny. But it was. I've seen some very fun shows there. I saw Blue October there. Canadian Robot Lady says, hello, live chat friends. She's in the house. Lock Watcher, did you ever see Bowie? Twice. I saw Bowie on the tour where Peter Frampton was his guitar player. And I saw him, I believe, a year or two earlier than that. I'm guessing on the years, but probably like 87. and 90 were the 2 years I saw Bowie. And fabulous show. Same thing. The guy's a showman. He sounded great. His music is good, and he wanted to entertain people. One of those shows was at the Pontiac Silverdome, which is now long gone, and the other one was at the Palace of Auburn Hills, where the Pistons used to play. John Michael Karma saw Bob Seger's system at a rock quarry in Dundee, Michigan. I completely believe it. I'm not familiar with the rock quarry, but Dundee, Michigan, of course, is down over here somewhere. And Bob Seger was known famously for playing anywhere and everywhere he could get an audience. That guy was the ultimate road warrior who constantly doing shows places, constantly gigging. And I know people who saw him at tiny venues in Oakland County, Michigan, back in the days, long before Night Moves. Grande Taco, it's hard to believe that stuff they built when I was a kid are now gone. Yeah, I remember them building the Pontiac Silverdome, this gigantic arena that would hold 80,000 people or something. The Detroit Lions played there, and they couldn't get 80,000 people in there at any given time because nobody wants to see the Lions play. But Elvis Presley played the Silverdome, as did Led Zeppelin. And when Zeppelin played the Silverdome, at that moment in time, it was the largest audience ever for a single band performance because they sold out the Silverdome. But that is now gone. They leveled it, and it's now an Amazon distribution center. Jason Brynmar says, when Heather makes it to the Coyote viewing, she needs to walk in after her announcement doing the robot arm walk. Well, the better part is going to simply be having her do the announcements. Wait, Canadian Robot Lady says the loudest show she was ever at was the CanCon band at USS, Ubiquitous Synergy Seeker. I never heard of them. How do I not know about this band that you went and saw? Mark Miller's got to go because his brother offered to buy lunch. We don't know when that's going to happen again. Oh. M. Dawn, I saw Kenny Rogers once. He stopped his concert and told the audience to stop singing along. We should be there to hear him sing. I find that so annoying. I've been at shows where someone is singing so loud, it's bothering me. And I've actually moved away from people because they're singing so loud. And that's annoying. Rick's Play says he saw Elvis play a year before he passed, which I'm guessing going to be 1976 because he passed in 77. One of the few things I remember specifically. Dan Boyd, Barry was unfortunately wasted on the Lions. Barry Sanders. I've said it before. Go to YouTube and type in Barry Sanders highlights. That's it. And watch a guy where you can give one guy the football and there's 12 people who can't tackle him. He'll run into a group of people and pop out the other side still running. It's like he ran. It's like he's going through things. It's crazy. Yeah, Walkwatcher points out that Bowie also did a bunch of acting gigs. He was in The Prestige, my favorite movie. Canadian Robot Lady says the band was so loud she couldn't make out the songs. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, Steve points out that the WrestleMania 3 was at the Silverdome. I was not there, but yeah, I remember that. Michelle Price, ever see Steppenwolf? No. And I know that Steppenwolf was one of those bands that they had some imposters, some other people touring as Steppenwolf back in the day. I remember reading about that someplace. Hoffbug says the loudest concert was The Who, tied with Rush, Hemispheres. Yeah, The Who is known for being loud, and I think a couple members of the band have said they've got hearing damage from that. Jerry Dodge says at a Tool concert, they troll the audience. In certain songs, they'll give an unexpected break so that people who are singing along will sound stupid. I like that. Tool is obviously, I'm guessing they're a loud band also. I've actually got a couple Tool CDs. Vampire Bear saw Sisters of Mercy in Cleveland in 2009. Yes, that's very metal, very metal. Richard says Earl Campbell was similar. The Oilers' only move was give the ball to Earl. Yeah, well, the Lions had both Barry Sanders and Billy Sims. And Billy Sims would put up numbers that were insane. But one guy can't carry the whole team, you know? Oh, Lost Town Street. Nightwish was very loud. I've never seen Nightwish, but they're very good. My brother went and saw them at the Royal Music Theater, said they were very good live also. Yeah, Dan Boyd said The Who was in the Guinness Book of World Records for their loudness, over 200 decibels. Steve G, CDs, yes. I used to buy CDs. I've still got them. You save them because that way you don't have to sit there and transfer stuff and remember where the songs are. Two Left Thumbs saw Sisters of Mercy in Leeds in 1982. Be a few years before I'd heard of them. The Great Quidjabo, I love Nightwish. Isaac Bob Yarks is Finnish band. He's referring to Nightwish. I guess I didn't mention that earlier. Don Smallberry is sending love from Sacramento. Mustang MG05, there's a lot of talent's been wasted on the Lions. Yeah. Unfortunately. Frank JC III says, Steve, you're right. The Orange Cup does wash out the screen. Kurt 3540. Have you been to Harpo's? I saw Spirit there in 84. Wow. I saw the Look there in 1980. We're gonna rock. How about you? Harpo's is one of those clubs that like WABX and WRIF would sponsor shows at, and they'd get somebody in like Spirit or the Look, a local band. Richard Thomas. Anyone know if Grand Funk made it to the Hall of Fame yet? I don't think so. I don't know how popular they are in terms of nowadays outside of the Michigan area. They're from Flint, Michigan. But I don't know. Lockwatcher, the Cars, another great band to see. I had tickets to see the Cars in 1982 and couldn't go. I had to work. I gave the tickets to my brother. And he said it was a good show. Thanks. M. Takala, 82. A Finn year. Any historians I could contact about iron mining at Crystal Falls? Not a lot of iron mining directly in Crystal Falls, but if you over a little bit to the west, Iron Mountain, Ironwood, Iron River, that area, or up towards the Negaunee Marquette area, Ishpeming and so on, send me an email. Send me an email and say, hey, this is M. Takala. I'm the Finn who asked you about iron mining in the UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I will hook you up because I know all about it myself, and I also know where all the information can be found. I know almost as much about the iron mining as I do about the copper mining, which is a slightly different area. Jerry Dodge, ever been a fan of the Beastie Boys? Yes, a little bit. I don't like all their stuff. I like Intergalactic Planetary. I think it's a great song. I know a lot of their hardcore fans are like, no, that's too commercial. They're selling out. I like it though. Philip Crosby, I saw Close Pursuit in the 80s. I've heard of a band called In Pursuit out of Ohio, but not Close Pursuit. M Tackle claims we'll send an email. Oh, Tom, one of the worst concerts I've seen was Mott the Hoople in 73. You know, it's pretty funny. I've not been to any quote unquote bad shows in a long time. I think word gets out too fast nowadays with social media and so on. So Lewis Browning saw AC/DC August 1979 in Cincinnati at Riverfront. Darkwood 777. You ever been to a corner in Winslow, Arizona? No, I haven't. But I would keep my eyes peeled for a girl, my lord, driving a flathead Ford. Flatbed Ford. Come on. Beeley, I love Lehto slaw. It's delicious. I'm working on that, by the way. It's one of the longest, oldest, slowest developing jokes of all time, but we'll do something with that. Daniel Kester, ever try gold panning? No, I have not. Canadian Robot Lady is saying 0.0.0.0.0.0. Oh. Yeah, Richard DC asks if the Canadian Robot Lady's got a cat on the keyboard. Hogbo, 9 Inch Nails. I believe it's 9 Inch Nails that occasionally would have Gary Newman come out and they do this really, really heavy version of Cars. You can find that on YouTube. Tuck All Day says, had a friend that was into Woody Guthrie and always loved the song 1913 Massacre. Turned him onto your channel and found out that you'd written a book. You'd written a book about the incident. Small world out there, man. Yeah. And in fact, in the inside cover of my book, I have the lyrics to 1913 Massacre reprinted with permission of his estate. Michelle Price, is copper mining a new trend? Now, the problem with copper mining is you can go look for ingots, raw native copper up there. But most of the copper that was mined up there was ore that had to be processed. Steve GB, Steve, I love you. Animal House reference 0.0. Canadian Robot Lady was writing entries in her day planner on top of her keyboard and was pressing the keys down. Oh, it's funny. Given of Ox, worst concert, Smashing Pumpkins at Phoenix Amphitheater. You know, I've enjoyed much of their music. I've never seen them live, but I can't speak to that. So, Scott M, are you a fan of the band Rush? Yes, I am, but I'm not going to go see them live. I'll let other people pay all that money. Steve G, I love you, man. Say it back for everyone in my car right now. Thanks, dude. I love you too. Terry Rose went to an oldies concert where Roy Orbison was okay with people filming, but Little Richard asked for the camera and then smashed it on stage. I went to an Alan Parsons show a couple of years ago at Royal Music Theater, and there was somebody literally in the front row, leaning on the stage, filming him like this, and he finished the first song, and then he pointed at them and goes, "Can you please put that away?" And then he looked at the audience and goes, "Why would someone pay this kind of money to come to a show to watch me through a screen this big?" And the place went, and people put their phones away. It's just sad. Yeah, Canadian Robot Ladies, embarrassed but present. Oh boy. Dan Boyd says my friend opened for the Smashing Pumpkins. And Billy Corgan asked me to come out and play with them. So my friend asked to play with the Pumpkins, and they said no. Michelle Price, have you seen Kid Rock in concert? No, I have not. I've been familiar with him since long before he was famous. I had a secretary who's like, I saw this guy playing Royal Oak the other night. He was so good. He's selling tapes out of the trunk of his car. It's Kid Rock. And I've said this before, but you can look up Kid Rock at Woodstock. And he came out and opened his set in the early afternoon because that time he was not a headliner. And he does Bow at the Bow wearing a bright red Detroit Tigers homage outfit. And he's jumping around like a maniac. And it's a fantastic show. Image Doc Ray says Alan Parsons lives near me. I run into him. Super nice guy. He's a very nice guy. I've seen interviews with him. I got to see him in concert a couple years ago. His music's been amazing. It's one of those. He's one of those guys who's just consistently put out fantastic music, and it was great to see him play. And interesting with his music, he wasn't. He would bring in singers. So Alan Parsons is not the guy singing on the songs you hear. We often think of that as a singer, but it's not. He did sing some of his songs when he was performing live, and then he also had a guy singing with him who sang a lot of songs. Who's from Michigan, of all places, from the Upper Peninsula. So yeah, Dan Boyd concerts, especially the ticketing, are a racket. Yeah, I mean, when I was in like high school, I'd go see a couple of shows. Me and my friends would get together, go see a show, and the tickets seemed expensive. I didn't realize that later on in life they'd get completely out of control like this. Arts 4014 says Alan Parsons is awesome. He was even on the roof at the Beatles' final public performance. Padre, aka Padre, says Eric Wolfson was a singer. He was one of the singers. There were several. Jason Brindamar, worst song ever. Tom Petty's "Don't Come Around Here No More." I can't stand the repetitiveness. Was it a joke? There's a lot of songs like that. You're not quite sure what's going on, you know? Steve is an Insane Clown Posse from Michigan. Yes, they are. I've never seen them live. I've seen them on different shows. They were on Howard Stern a whole bunch of times way, way back in the day. They're famous for going up on stage and spraying the audience with Fago, which is also from Detroit. But hey, they got a thing going. Jerry Dodge, I highly doubt Steve's been to an ICP concert. No, and I've never been to any of the Juggalo get-togethers either. Standard Deviation, ever heard of I'm So Glad by the Cream or by Cream? Yeah, there's a repetitive song for you. And I've mentioned the song before, but there's a band from Michigan called The Frost that came out back in the 60s. And they got a song called Rock and Roll Music. And that's pretty much the entire lyrics of the song. Not the entire lyrics, but close. John Michael Karma. Dude's never heard Someone's Knocking on the Door by McCartney. I have to tell you, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but when people used to talking about stupid lyrics, I'd always pull that one out and go, let's talk about Paul McCartney. You go, brilliant songwriter. Oh, of course, brilliant songwriter. Someone's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing a bell. Better open the door and let him in. And I'm convinced that Paul McCartney could write the greatest tunes on earth. Wasn't quite sure what to do with the lyrics all the time. So Vampire Barrow says, I still have my ME 262 tour shirt. Who had an ME 262 tour shirt? Johnny Z says, Let Him In sounds great on a good audio system. Oh, it probably does sound great. It's just when you start listening to the words, it falls apart. Image Doc Ray says, the Insane Clown Posse was the worst concert I ever shot. Yeah, it's kind of like if you go to a Gallagher show, you're going to get hit with melon chunks. Darkwood 777 says, and yet you remember the lyrics, so job done. No, you're not writing a song so people will remember it. You're writing it so people will buy it. Vampire Bear Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah, one of the weirdest names of all time for a band. Never, I don't know if they ever had an explanation for that or not. The Blue Oyster Cult. But I liked a lot of their music. I remember back when they ruled the airwaves too. Jason Brindemar's burnout or overplay of great songs on the radio can really kill a band's best work. Joey Justin, hey Lehto. The Z only real guy left. Standard Deviation Blue Oyster Cult used to perform under the name Soft White Underbellies. I love hearing about the previous names that bands had. Sharon O'Brien, Blue Oyster Cult was a good concert, as much as I can remember from my teens. I don't remember them touring much. Did they get much out of the East Coast area? "65 is not elderly." Gilbert Gottfried performing at a Juggalo event. Did he really? I mean, Gilbert Gottfried wouldn't care what audience he was in front of. He would just go out and try to be funny. And if he sensed antagonism, it'd probably fuel him to get funnier. Michelle Price, 5584, White Zombie, or now Rob Zombie is still a great band. More human than human. Astro Creep 2000. Astro Creep 2000. Vampire Bear, I saw BOC with Nazareth 4 times. Nazareth. I'm curious, are they named after the biblical Nazareth or Nazareth, Pennsylvania? Dan Boyd, my favorite band name is Bloody Holly. Their logo is an illustration of Buddy Holly with cracked lenses. Danger Dan Army Man says, howdy, Steve. Cheers from the great white south. 14 inches of snow is not something we are accustomed to. 14 inches? Somebody else mentioned that also. That's crazy. Standard deviation, I saw Blue Oyster Cult about 10 times in my youth. Where? On the East Coast? And they never played my then favorite song. Then came the last days of May. $858 Bill. Yeah, let's try this again because the first time I didn't understand it, but now, ever notice the tunes they play on the radio almost never are the artist's best work? And that's often the case. But remember that the radio stations are often playing the music that the record companies are telling them to play, meaning that this song's a single. And they often have bad taste. And I can tell you many albums where the singles that were chosen off them were not the best songs in my mind. But it's kind of weird how record companies are in the business of making records, but don't even themselves know like what the good music is. John Michael Carmer says Dread Zeppelin had a great name. So did Les Zeppelin, which is a band that tours the Midwest. It's a bunch of women playing Led Zeppelin music. Jay Klein says, when my dad was writing his book in the 50s, he spoke directly to Chuck Berry when he was getting permission. Yeah, Chuck Berry famously runs his own stuff. My understanding is that when he tours, he finds local musicians and pays them in cash, but then makes the promoters pay him in cash. And it's all like he does everything himself as much as he can. Michelle Price's local radio stations here still play Nirvana as if it's the latest band to come on the scene. Oh, Dan Boyd mentions not seeing the Police. I saw the Police once in 1981 or 82. The warm-up group was Joan Jett. And it was a pretty good show. I mean, the Police show, I wasn't that crazy about Joan Jett at the time, but oh, Jay Klein says the book was actually called circa 1957. Called him in 1984. Yeah, so at that point in time, Chuck was probably still touring, but not putting out the hit records anymore. Here we go. Given O'Fox, first concert was Honeymoon Suite at the Royal Music Theater, November of 86. I was 15. And of course, Canadian Robot Lady will appreciate that Honeymoon Suite being a Canadian band. I got a new girl now, and she's a lot like you. I love that band. Canadian Robot Lady, it's hard to believe that Nirvana is considered classic rock. No, they're oldies now. You know, I mean, that's old. Escargot, I don't comment much, but I really enjoy listening to the conversation. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And, you know, keep in mind there's almost 300 people in the room, but not everybody participates in the conversation. But you don't have to. You can lurk. Dr. Rick, Steve, great show, my friend. Thank you. Well, thank you. Lethological Gaming, was there any doubt we'd make it to February? I had my doubts. There was a doldrums there, very, very cold doldrums. Yeah, I told you Heather likes the Honeymoon Suite, all caps. Standard Deviation, I saw the Ramones open for the Grateful Dead at Winterland, early 70s. Yeah, I never saw the Ramones live, but always admired and appreciated them. 65 is not elderly. Did you own a bunch of 45s? I did, but I also owned a stack of LPs. And later on, I bought CDs. I never bought 8 tracks. I also didn't buy cassettes because you can make your own cassette. So Jay Klein, I've heard Nirvana in the grocery store. Oh, I've the stuff I've heard in grocery stores or the music in different businesses. I'm pretty sure I heard One of Our Submarines by Thomas Dolby in a clothing store at the mall. And I'm like, yeah, Honeymoon Suite, Dan Boyd reminds us, was a mainstay of early MTV. Yeah, and they had a couple videos that got a ton of rotation. Michelle Price, what's your concert plans? I don't have any concerts planned just yet because I've not seen any announced, and I'm like, I got to go see that. There's some I'm sure they will be announced, but as of right now, 0. I saw 14 shows last year and 15 the year before, something like that. So we'll see how it goes. Dave Beeler saw Australian Pink Floyd at Oxford Theatre in the UK in 2009 before they split into 2 bands. And my friend Dave Fowler is the guitar player, one of the guitar players in Aussie Pink Floyd now. And then, of course, the other band that broke off does their own thing. I've seen Aussie Pink Floyd now 5 times. And I will go see them again. But they haven't announced their American dates just yet. Image Doc Ray, I saw Elton John at Dodger Stadium in 75, probably the most legendary show ever in LA. I saw Elton John play at Comerica Park where the Detroit Tigers play baseball just a couple summers ago and had seats that were practically in a different county. And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. Elton John is one of these guys who takes his craft very seriously. His catalog is astounding. He puts on a great show. And I mean, the guy comes out, he does a song, and he stands up and he bows, sits down, he plays another song. It's amazing. It's amazing. Michelle Price, do you buy concert t-shirts for the concerts you attend? Mostly, unless they don't have good shirts. Or a couple of times I've seen the lines are too long, and I'll go home and order them if I can. Like I bought an ELO shirt for Jeff Lynne, but I didn't buy it at the venue. I went online and bought it from his own website. And that's popped. It's in rotation right now. Aaron Freeman, who's opening for Coyote versus Acme? We'll probably have a meet and greet first and then a Q&A afterwards, but we'll see. A lot of stuff's got to get put together. Bob, blah, blah. Steve, before it gets too late, I'd like to thank you for another afternoon of pleasant conversation. I get so much entertainment from these shows. Thank you. No, thank you. And I appreciate that. I really do. And Sad Tiger just lurks, but that's just fine, as Canadian Robot Lady points out. Better to lurk and laugh than to miss this witty group of people. Lewis Browning says Sammy Hagar and Rick Springfield, June at Pine Knob. I'm not that big of a fan of Sammy's. I'm assuming he's headlining. But we'll see. We'll see. Occasionally I pull an audible and buy tickets the last minute. Vampire Bear says cassettes came before 8 tracks. That very well could be, but in the progression of things, more people would remember that 8-track players were in cars quite commonly, and then later on, cassette decks became a thing. Chuck Whitehead, do you have any event-specific shirts? I'm not sure about that. Oh, Dave Beeler saw Steve Martin in 1979 at the local fairgrounds with my first wife as a fiance before he quit stand-up. I know people who saw him at like college venues in like the 1970s, right around that time. And then when he was on Saturday Night Live, it exploded his career in a good way. And then he put out best-selling albums and so on. So, Jerry Dodge, thanks for the live stream. Till next time. Johnny Z, I leave concerts during the encore to avoid traffic. I've done that before, but I'll check setlist.fm to see what the encore is and if I'm going to care. And I've been at a show before the encore is a lousy song. I'm out of here. Oh, boy. Steve, David Lee Roth is playing in Dayton this June. Yeah, and he probably won't sell out no matter where he plays. But and Canadian Robot Lady, all right, peeps, is back to spring cleaning, Belio cleaning, and working on a project I've been commissioned for. So thank you very much. I'm done also. We've been here for over 2 hours. I'll talk to you guys later. May have to go out and move some snow. We'll see how it goes. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.